Let's talk about Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith spends a lot of her time planning lessons that are fun and engaging for her grade 3 students. She differentiates instruction and customizes activities to all the different learning styles of her 20 students and accommodates for the 3 IEPs. But then for a few weeks, she has to throw all that out to prepare the students for the EQAOs. Standardized tests are a vital part of the Canadian schooling system. Students all across the country will give math and language tests set out by the government. And the results show us the truth about our children's achievement and the progress of our education system in comparison to the international standards. Or does it? Standardized tests drifted over from the US in the 80s when governments felt they needed some proof of return for the public spending in education system. And today, despite all the research and advancement in our knowledge, the purpose of standardized tests remain political. In recent years, the education community has come to understand the value of personalization of learning. Differentiation and accommodation are encouraged and practiced in schools across the country. Universal design for learning is there to ensure success of each and every child. The Ontario government published Growing Success, which states, "The Ontario government is committed to enabling all students to reach their potential and succeed. Our challenge is that every student is unique and each must have an opportunity to achieve success according to his or her own interests, abilities, and goals." But then, at the same time, the government mandates every student at grade 3 and 6 sit a standardized test. Talk about mixed messaging. While the government spends millions annually on this test, there is a growing understanding among the education community that standardized tests undermine equality. We know if students' social economic factors, parents' education level, language, culture, physical and emotional health all greatly affect their learning. And then having them to give a test of multiple choice and short answer questions that lack cultural context and relatable interest to the student really only measures the student's ability to recall facts and perform routines and operations. If anything, the results show us the socioeconomic makeup of a community. Furthermore, these tests neglect to assess the vital skills that a student needs to become a contributing citizen, such as collaboration, responsibility, organization, independent work, self-regulation, and initiative. They are marked in the report card, but when schools are under pressure to perform well in these tests, teachers inevitably teach to a test. Valuable class time is taken up to prepare students to shade in the correct box and show all their working out. Often, other equally as valuable citizenship skill, science, social studies, arts, and creativity are compromised. Standardized tests are especially hard on students with learning disabilities. It is disappointing when a society we are moving to creating an inclusive community, our schools are failing the most vulnerable. Studies show that students with disabilities fail large-scale tests at a higher rate than other students. There are very little accommodation and modification procedures put in place to ensure equitable, standardized assessment. Now that's an oxymoron. Standardized tests exhibit biases on so many fronts. Studies show boys score higher on multiple choice questions, whereas girls tend to score higher on essays and open-ended questions, which our EQAOs lack. For English language learners, these tests are very screwed, as it requires reading, understanding, and expressing entirely in a language that they are new to. Some accommodations are available, but these still neglect students with modified IEPs and other disabilities such as ADHD. And let's not ignore the level of anxiety that these tests bring upon the young. Performance is reduced under anxiety. The real test question is, are the results of the standardized test really reliable? Governments use these tests to compare their standards to the rest of the world, but are they really comparable? Comparing results of the Ontario EQAOs to other countries are like comparing a car to a tomato. By comparing, we are disregarding the variation in the curriculum and the education practices and the variation in our students. We know that these tests favor some while hindering others. We are aware that students' learning and performance is affected by various factors. We understand the diversity in our students' abilities, and yet we sit our children in desks to fill out a standardized test. With growing research showing that the standardized tests are providing very little benefit to our students and the education system, many countries have already abolished the standardized tests. But here in Ontario, we hold on to the standardized test while acknowledging every student is unique and each must have an opportunity to achieve success according to his or her own interests, abilities, and goals.